Okay, we're on the right wheel speed sensor now. We're going to collect some data off of here. We're going to do it in the same steps that we did on the left hand side. Right now we're doing a resistance check. Sensor is disconnected. You can see the leads are connected up. This is what we have on the resistance. Got 1.0665 kilo ohms. And there you go. And we're going to record that. Okay, now the sensor is unplugged. We're going to do the same steps as I mentioned earlier. We're on the white wire, switch is on, and looking at the diagram, we have A is a white wire, B is a black wire. I'm stabbed right here on the white wire. And by the way, these two color wires are identical over here to the left hand wheel speed sensor. Okay, let's take a look at the reading. We got 5.0276 volts. I'm going to move the T-pin over now. I'm going to move it over to the black wire. And by the way, I'm using a known good ground. I'm hooked up over here on the bolt. Now I checked it previously to make sure this is a good ground. I went to a supply vault to make sure that I had some voltage there, read good, so I know the ground is good. So you got to make sure you got a good ground before you start doing these tests. Alright, here's what we got on that. 0.0495. Sensor is hooked up and I'm still on the black wire. Never moved the pin. And this is what we have for voltage on that one. We got 2.4991 volts. I've moved the T-pin over. I'm now on the white wire. Now the white wire, here's the voltage for that. 2.608. Alright, here's the data for the left wheel speed sensor. This is when it was unplugged. We had 1.0751 kilo ohms. Now with it unplugged on the white wire, we had about 5 volts. Here on the black you can see is 0.0484. Now when we hooked it up on the black wire we had 2.33. Here on the white wire we had 2.6. Now let's come down to here. Now on the right hand side with the resistance check we got 1.0665 kilo ohms. You can see that's very close. But again, like I mentioned earlier, you cannot go and swear 100% that's okay, because we can have a shorter turn or two. Alright, coming on down to here, we got pretty much 5 volts, same as the other, 0.0495, pretty much right there with the other one. Down here, we got 2.49 volts, a little bit different from the 2.33, but again, I would say that's nothing to worry about. Down here, we got 2.6 volts, that correlates with what we had up here. So at the moment, I'd say probably everything is looking probably okay at this point. Alright, so what we're going to do now is we're going to use one of these here lines on this side. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get on this white wire. Then I'm going to wiggle the harness here. All the way from this connector on the ABS wheel speed sensor. I'm going to move it, follow it back, get in the main harness, move it until it gets all the way back to the EBCM. So what we want to do is we want to see if this here voltage will vary. If this voltage will vary, then we know we got a bad connection that's going along in there. Could be an open, could be a short to ground. And as I mentioned earlier, if this voltage here rises to 5 volts, we got to open. If it starts going below this, then this one of the wires is touching ground. So that's what we're going to do next. Okay, let me show you what I got here. I got a meter. I'm on the white wires I mentioned. We're going to do the harness check here. I'm going to set it up for record mode. Now, as you can see right here, it's already set for record, so I'm going to press F1, get a record up. Now, this is for the amount of time. Set for 5 minutes. That looks good for me. Then it's going to set up this sample interval. 1 second. Every 1 second it's going to collect some data. Okay. Now, I'm going to start. Alright. So right now, we are actually recording. So it's going along, it's going along, it's going along, and now you can see I just created a problem. Now I'm going to put it back. Now I'm going to stop the recording, okay? Now we're going to go back and we're going to look at the trend. Now you can see right here, this is the voltage where it was, 2.6. And it goes along. I created a fault. It drops. See, it went all the way down, came back up, and now we're back up again here. Okay? So I'm going to use this feature, let it record, and then I'm going to move the harness and see if I can't simulate a problem here. If you got a min-max on your voltmeter, you can do the same thing. If not, then you can get a helper while you're moving a harness. Then you can have someone to monitor the voltage on the voltmeter, and then while you're moving a harness, then they can holler out to you that the voltage changed on you. So that's what I'm going to do now. Alright, I've been playing with the harness all the way from here over on the connector side on the wheel speed sensor, all the way across the engine, under the engine, over the top, all the way up to the EBCM. And I spent 4 minutes, and you can see that from down here. There's a time stamp here. So down here is 4 minutes. Now look up here. See the line graph? It shows that it's at 2.6 volts, and it goes all the way across, and you can see there was no dropout at all. So at this point, I still can't find a problem anywhere. And like I said, for this whole week, it's been running fine. Alright, now what we're going to do now is we're going to take some measurements off of the wheel speed sensor while it's turning to get an AC voltage. Alright, so what we got here is the EBCM connector. We got 2 pages of this. This is a 29 pin connector. Look right down here, this connector is C2. Okay, it's 29 pins, female connector is what we're looking at up here. And you can see how the pin numberings are, and I'll show you this later on the real world. It goes from 1 to 15, then on the next row on the bottom goes from 16 to 29. Now here's all of the functions, but what we're interested in is the 2 front wheel speed sensors. Now what I've done is, if you come right down in here and look, what I've marked out in red is going to be the signal input. This will be the high side. Alright, so for example, if you look right here, it says this one here is wheel speed sensor signal right front. So we want to look at this signal. It's a dark green wire. It's on pin 10. And also the one for the left wheel speed sensor, signal high, is going to be on pin 11. It's a dark blue wire. Now the corresponding signal returns for this is down here. It's on 24 for the right front, okay, and on 25 for the left front. Now as I mentioned before, these here has a floating ground. They do not tie back to a DC negative as far as a battery ground. So what we're going to do is I'm going to stab these 2 right here, and then I'm going to hook up the as far as the ground, I'm going to just hook it up to a known good ground. Okay, so now what I want to do, now we could do this at the wheel speed sensors, but just to give you a little more info about these, looking at the EBCM is actually what's going to be looking at these signals. So I thought it would be a good idea that we'll stab right up here on this connector right there and see what the EBCM is actually seeing. So you can see it on pin 10, and I've kind of marked it out down here. There's pin 10. That's for the right front high side signal. And then over here, pin 11, that's the left front. Now these 2 down here, I just marked them in, but as I mentioned, we're not going to grab those. We're going to grab a ground, a known good ground for that. All right, the correlation. Let's look at this right here. Okay, if I come down, if we look at the left-hand front wheel speed sensor, we come down. Now we come to the splice. Now after we get past the splice, these 2 splice points here, then these 2 wires change color from what they were up here. So, speed sensor high is going to be a dark blue wire going into pin 11. Dark blue 11. Let's check it over here. Let's see how that works. Alright, so we come down to 11. There's 11. It's a dark blue wire. It's the wheel speed sensor signal, left front, and it's the high because I marked it out in red. Red being like a positive and the blue will be the negative. Okay, the other one, 25. if you come back over here, you see 25. It's going to be a yellow wire. Yellow wire, 25, signal return, left-hand front wheel speed sensor. Come back over here, we see 25, it's yellow wire. And as you can see, it's the left front wheel speed sensor, return. And the other one is the same exact thing, except now we're just using a dark green wire. It's on 11, and the other one is a 24, pin 24, and that is a tan wire. So let's get ready and get ready to show you the EBCM and its connector. Okay, now we're on the driver's side, and right up in here there's a splash shield, plastic splash shield. I've already taken that out, just some plastic fasteners. And here's where the EBCM is at. It's got the hydraulic pump, it's got the valves inside, solenoid valves, and here's that 29 pin connector, C2. Now what I've done is I've just pulled back some of the tape here, and now we're going to take it out. And what I want to do is I need to back probe these here wires, okay? So you can see there's a hood over here, it's in the way. So what I want to do is I want to take that off, okay? So let me work this thing around. Now, if you look really close here, up on this end, there's a little catch. There's a little catch right in here, and there's one right over here on this side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lift this back, hold it back a little bit, then come back over here, and I'm going to hold him back. The idea is we're trying to hold these catches back so we can slide this hood back. It's a little tricky. We can get this thing back. I think he's starting to come now. Okay, so he slides off of there. Now, these are our wires. Kind of straighten them out a little bit here instead of having that big curve in there. Okay. Now, so now the latch was up on the top. So now I'm going to hold it like this. And now you can see there's pin. You can see there's pin A right over here. And then going across the top, you can see here's pin 1, 2, and it goes all the way across till it gets to pin 15. Then it comes back over here, there's 16, continues along, and then there's pin 29 on the very bottom right here. Alright, so if I go to pin 11, it should be a dark blue wire. Okay, so I'll flip it back, and I know pin 1 is right here. Alright. Now it might be hard to see, but if you look on the back of the connector, a lot of times what they'll do is they'll put the pin numbers on one side here. So if you can see right there, there's pin 1, and down here on the bottom, there's pin 16. So let's count across. And also to help us if we're looking for the color. Okay, so it looks like that maybe over in here is where we're at, because that looks like a dark blue wire. Okay, let's count it out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, so 11, and if I go to 12, which is looking over here on the connector, it's an orange with a black stripe. All right. Now if I go to the next wire, I look, it's an orange wire, and it should have a black stripe in it. And if you look, it's got a black stripe. So this wire right here is the one that we want to stab. This is going to be our left front wheel speed sensor that's on the high side. Okay, so that's one of them. Now if we go and look, we can see the one for the right front. This is a high-speed signal input. It's on pin 10. So it's on the wire right to the left, and also it's a dark green wire. So if I look at it, and I pull some of these wires back in here, and I pull that one up, let me straighten it out a little bit as far as the wires. Alright. There he is, just a matter of just routing them up in here. And there is the two wires that I want to stab right there. Okay. So now I'm going to get some T-pins, and I'm going to get stuck in there. Okay, we are looking at a live image right now. Forgive my voice if it sounds a little haspy, where the car is running in the background, so you might get a little bit of feedback from the audio, but I think I should be audible here. All right, let's go over these here traces, what we're seeing. If you remember this here blue trace, this blue trace is the left front wheel speed sensor. This will be the same thing as if we was out there at the checking the voltage. Remember, we had 2.6 volts out there. And we also, this here's the red trace is on channel B, where the old one's on channel A. This is channel B, where we're looking at the right front wheel speed sensor, white wire, which is out there, was also 2.6 volts. Now we're reading, as I showed you earlier, we're looking right at the EBCM controller. This is what the controller is actually seeing. So as the car is running, the voltages stay the same. Now if you take a look, let's see what I got up here. On channel A, I got it set for a plus or minus 20 volt scale. I'm on DC coupling. And also on channel B, plus or minus 20 volts, I'm also on the DC coupling. Channel C and channel D, I've got turned off. Over here, I got my time base set for 1 second per division. Now if you come down and look at the bottom, all the way across the bottom here is showing me my time base. Now I've got 10 divisions here. So from here 0 seconds, there's 1 second, 2 seconds, and then if I go all the way to the very end, you can see I got it set for capture time of 10 seconds. Alright, up here, this is how many samples I'm capturing. I'm capturing 100 million samples per second. Okay? So now, if we look right over here, we can look. Let's look at this here voltage scale. You see how it's in blue? So I know this blue, being in blue numbers here, that's correlating with this here blue trace, channel A, my left front wheel speed sensor. Now you can see it's between 0 and 4, so you can estimate maybe 2.5 to 3 volts thereabout. Well, actually we can come and we can measure that. So I can come up here, this is a little square box up in there, click it, and I can drag it down, and I can put it right on there, and that looks maybe just a smidgen too high. Okay, now if I come up here and look, there's 2.59 volts. That's pretty close to 2.6. Now let's do the same thing. We can do it for the red trace down here. Now I'm going to come over here and I can grab that one. Whoops. Let me grab him again. Got on the wrong thing here. Alright, bring the cursor down. Line him up. Okay, now if you look, see the little red square? It's showing that I have 2.6 volts. Again, the same thing. And by the way, you see this over here, these numbers, that scale, that's for the red trace because these numbers are in red. Alright. So everything is looking good. You notice there is no AC up and down, right? Because the wheels are not turning. A little bit later, I'm going to put this thing in gear. Hopefully both of these wheels will spin. I did do a little test earlier and both of the wheels did spin. Of course, it throws the ABS code, and if you try to speed up the engine any at all, then of course the back wheels are not turning, and then so the hydraulic pump is sitting there with the valves and their solenoids, and it's sitting there trying to pulse the brakes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it in gear. I'm just going to let it idle, and we're going to see what an AC sine wave look like. Okay, well, you see we just went over the scope looking at the bias there, and the video is getting a little bit long, so we got some more scope readings we're going to look at. As I mentioned about, we're going to put it in gear, and we're going to look at the look at the sine waves on these sensors here. So I didn't want you guys to go to sleep, so I'm going to cut it a little bit short, and we'll be looking forward to seeing you in the next shot, and you guys take care.